savings accounts. Rate information is at liveoakbank.com/radio.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. On many lists, Republican Michael McCaul of Texas is the richest member of the House of Representatives, a net worth of $125 million by one estimate, in large part from his spouse, a founder of iHeartRadio. Not the richest man in the House by his own account, the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson of Louisiana. On Johnson's official financial disclosure, he lists no bank or retirement account. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has more.
Under assets on Speaker Johnson's most recent financial disclosure report for 2022, it says none disclosed, no retirement plan, no mutual funds, no bank account. Actually, the Speaker's office told me he does have a personal bank account, but it's exempt from House reporting rules because it doesn't earn interest. Jordan Libowitz, spokesman for Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, or CREW, says
it could be that he's just essentially living hand to mouth. It's paycheck to paycheck. And so it goes into a checking account, it goes right out of it.
Libowitz says congressional ethics rules only require disclosure if a member of Congress has total deposits in interest-bearing accounts worth more than $5,000. Speaker Johnson did disclose several debts, including a mortgage, as he told Fox News last weekend.
We have 4 kids, 5 now, that are very active, and I have kids in graduate school, law school, undergraduate. We have a lot of expenses.
Jordan Libowitz of CREW says if members of Congress are living paycheck to paycheck, they can be vulnerable to things like influence buying, although Libowitz is not saying that's the case with Johnson. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
Again, movie, TV, and streaming production could restart soon after a tentative contract deal and the Hollywood performers strike. Marketplace Morning Podcast has coverage if you miss it on the air today. Markets, S&P and Dow futures are each up 0.1%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Fidelity. A dedicated Fidelity advisor can help create a wealth plan for a full financial picture. More at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. And by Total Wine and More, where shoppers can find a great Cabernet, bourbon, or sparkling wine for everyone on their list this holiday season. Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
This month for Econ Extra Credit, not a documentary, but a feature film based on the historical record. We're watching Killers of the Flower Moon in theaters now. Members of the Osage Nation had been forced onto agriculturally poor land that turned out to be oil-rich. The film tells the story from the 1920s of a reign of terror faced by Osage people at the hands of exploiters and murderers taking their wealth. To help us with some key concepts from this history, we turn to Jean Dennison, a citizen of the Osage Nation and co-director of the Center for American Indian and Indigenous Studies at the University of Washington. Professor, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Now, Professor, you're generally all right with this feature film, even if something like that can't tell the whole story?
Killers of the Flower Moon is such an important story in that it tells a story that is legally not allowed to be told in our public schools in Oklahoma right now, a story about race and a story about colonialism and something that our teachers would literally be fired for in the state. I do think, though, that there's some real challenges that you can see that develop in the film in terms of not having Osages be the ones who tell the story. Osages are represented as a dying race, as a group of people who are being overcome by colonial histories and colonial processes, and are not represented in ways that show how creative and strategic we really are and have always been.
Let's zoom into some terms that come up in the film that are crucial. First of all, a headright.
So the headright is this fascinating system that was created by the United States government to take the Osage and turn us into a corporation model. And so the headright is an artifact of that. There was an allotment system that happened in 1906 for the Osage Nation, and we advocated throughout all of these processes. You can see Osages constantly trying to navigate the very complicated situations and make them as good for ourselves as we possibly could. So we advocated that none of our land be allotted to non-Osages, and we advocated that we maintain the mineral estate as a national commodity for the Osage Nation rather than as something that was going to go out to individuals. And so the headright came to represent your share
in this larger oil production.
When I read the book first, before seeing the film, this term guardianship is a key concept, a shocking concept. I was curious to see if the film addresses guardianship. It does. It does repeatedly. What is guardianship in the terms of the film?
What we see with guardianship happening is the assumption that the Osage people are not competent to manage their own affairs. You know, you have this moment in time where you have all of these corrupt people taking advantage of the fact that the federal government has created a void of justice in the Osage Nation. Instead of facilitating us to be able to make our own justice systems again, what the federal government does is not blame the people that are coming in or punish the people that are coming in, but instead says, Osages, you can't handle your own affairs yourselves. Clearly you need somebody to come in and protect you.
And it was a system, this guardianship system, that was ripe for intense abuse. I mean, it was at the center of really an industry of exploitation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was this system that was really tailor-made to exploit Osages, tailor-made to concentrate wealth. In fact, I would say that the Osage Reign of Terror is really a logical response to federal Indian policies and what they set up in the context of the Osage Nation.
Jean Dennison is a professor at the University of Washington. She's also author of the book Colonial Entanglement, Constituting a 21st Century Osage Nation. Professor, thank you very much for this.
Thanks so much for having me on your show. Dadli gache.
She also writes about the film in Time magazine. Tomorrow on many of our outlets, we also discuss how the Osage Nation has persevered and adopted a new constitution back in 2006. Econ Extra Credit. Follow along with our teachable moments drawn from our film viewing. Sign up free via marketplace.org/newsletters. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC is supported by the Q Forest School in Queens, where students from 70-plus nationalities in preschool through grade 12 prepare for a world of possibilities. Open houses on November 11th and December 2nd. More at qforest.org/WNYC.